welcome to the Hall of Crucifixion Resurrection. I'm Dr. James Fishburne, art historian and director of Forest Lawn Museum. This entire building was constructed to house a single work of art, which was painted by the Polish artist Jan Stika more than 125 years ago.
The Crucifixion is the largest painting in the western United States. In a moment, we'll reveal the artwork, but first, let us tell you about the artist and his masterpiece. Jan Stika was born in 1858 near the border of Poland and Ukraine. He studied at the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna, and later in Rome and Paris. Stika specialized in religious and historical subjects, but he's best known for painting panoramas. The panorama was a popular large-scale artistic format in the 19th century. Visitors would pay a small entry fee and approach the painting on a viewing platform. Many of these paintings were displayed fully in the round, while others, including the Crucifixion, were displayed in a semicircular formation. This photograph from the 1890s shows the original configuration of Stika's artwork. By enveloping viewers in a painted environment, panoramas created an immersive experience meant to give people the sense that they had been transported to a different time and place. This was true of the Crucifixion, which was originally called Golgotha, named for the place where Jesus was crucified. The artwork was commissioned in 1894 and was completed in 1896. It was finished in just a few years because Stika wasn't the only person working on the project. He oversaw a team of assistants, as was standard practice for the period. The Crucifixion measures 195 feet wide and 45 feet tall. To put that in perspective, it's 40% larger than Michelangelo's painting on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. For an everyday size comparison, it's longer than 5 school buses, and it's as tall as 4 buses stacked on top of each other. The main figures in the center of the Crucifixion are rendered at approximately life-size scale, while those on the periphery are much smaller. In total, the vast artwork features more than 1,000 people and a detailed view of ancient Jerusalem and the surrounding landscape. And now, we present the Crucifixion. At the center, Christ is shown moments before he was crucified. He stands confidently, illuminated by a divine light. At his feet is the crown of thorns, along with other symbols of the Passion. Behind Christ, a Roman soldier reads the charges against him. Kneeling by the soldier is Simon of Cyrene, who was forced to help Jesus carry the cross up the hill. The 2 other men crucified with Christ, named Dismas and Gestas, stand with their hands bound behind their backs as they await their fate. To the right, Mary Magdalene, one of Christ's closest followers, kneels in grief. And Mary, Jesus' mother, wearing blue and white, is supported in her time of sorrow. She's comforted by John, the beloved disciple. Peter, another of the 12 disciples, is shown nearby. He has just denied Christ for the 3rd time, and the rooster in front of him crows, as was reported in the Gospels. On horseback, a soldier tries to control the crowd. This is the Roman centurion Longinus. He's uneasy with the scene, and soon he will become one of the first Roman converts to Christianity. For centuries, artists have incorporated their self-portraits into larger paintings. and Jan Sticker was no exception. He used his own face for the depiction of Saul, or Paul the Apostle, who was the man on the left with a dark beard. Sticker chose this figure because he was captivated by Paul's conversion on the road to Damascus. The crucifixion is a remarkable example of 19th century painting. It is not a freeze frame of a single moment in the Gospels. Instead, it incorporates many stories from the New Testament. Sticker possessed a keen ability to weave together multiple narratives while evoking a strong sense of place. He visited the Holy Land prior to painting the crucifixion in order to make sketches. Sticker included numerous elements from the desert landscape, such as donkeys, camels, cacti, and olive trees. The city wall of Jerusalem dominates the right side of the painting, while a procession of people leads the viewer's eye up the hill. In the distance, the Temple of Herod, located on the Temple Mount within the Old City, is visible among other ancient buildings. Unlike most images of the crucifixion, which typically depict Jesus already nailed to the cross, Sticker created an inspiring scene which shows Christ resolute and brave in his most challenging moment. In order to bring this biblical epic to life, the artist imbued the painting with a combination of dramatic tension and meticulous details. He created a scene that appears both sacred and historical, and he makes viewers feel like they are witnesses to a pivotal moment in human history.
The story of how this painting ended up at Forest Lawn is almost as incredible as the artwork itself. Despite its vast size, the crucifixion has been on quite a journey. It was displayed in Warsaw, Poland, Moscow, Russia, and Kyiv, Ukraine, before being shipped to America for the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. After the fair, Sticker returned home, but he could not afford to bring the painting back to his native Poland. Sadly, he was never again able to see his masterpiece. The crucifixion was wrapped around a telephone pole and disappeared. Decades later, it was discovered in storage at the Chicago Civic Opera Company.
The crucifixion would have been lost forever had it not been for Forest Lawn, who heard about the painting, purchased the artwork, and built the Hall of Crucifixion Resurrection. Jan Sticker passed away in 1925, but Forest Lawn hired his son Adam and daughter-in-law Wanda, who traveled to Glendale to assist with the Herculean effort of installing and conserving the painting. After nearly half a century away from public view, it was unveiled on Good Friday in 1951. The setting of the crucifixion is a vital component of the artwork. We're no longer able to encounter it in the original semicircle display, but much has been added, thereby transforming the painting into one part of a larger artistic experience. The building is a truly unique structure which guides viewers as they encounter Sticker's work. Located atop Mount Forest Lawn, the facade is based on another hilltop structure, the cathedral in Orvieto, Italy. Orvieto Cathedral was built between the years 1290 and 1591, and it is perched high above the bucolic landscape of the surrounding countryside. With a series of arches above the entrance, the Hall of Crucifixion Resurrection primarily utilizes the Romanesque style, which was a popular form of architecture in Italy and elsewhere in Europe during the Middle Ages. Once visitors enter the building, they are again transported, this time to medieval France. The interior architecture is inspired by Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris and other Gothic churches. Gothic architecture originated in France in the 12th century. Like the interiors of these churches, the Gothic corridor in the Hall of Crucifixion Resurrection is lined with clusters of tall, thin columns that project upward and continue across the ceiling as a ribbed vault. As in traditional Gothic buildings, gray walls contrast with a colorful glow of stained glass. The central rose window, which is shaped like a flower in bloom, measures 11 feet in diameter. At the heart of the window is an inscription that reads, Honoris Causa, which is a Latin expression meaning for the sake of honor. The lancet windows, so called because they resemble lances or spears, include scenes from the life of Christ, as well as illustrations of Christian hymns. This window, for example, depicts the adoration of the Magi, while another shows Jesus, Mary, and Joseph on the flight into Egypt. And a later scene illustrates the baptism of Christ. Beyond the Gothic corridor is the immense theater where you now sit. It was inspired by classic movie palaces built during Hollywood's golden age. The grand and cinematic space suits the dramatic painting. The building takes visitors on a virtual pilgrimage, allowing them to leave their everyday surroundings and journey back in time and across great distances. By combining numerous architectural styles in a unique manner, the Hall of Crucifixion Resurrection transports visitors to a hilltop town in Italy, then to a cathedral in medieval France, and finally into a grand theater where viewers encounter a scene of ancient Jerusalem on the day of Christ's crucifixion.
But this story does not end with the crucifixion. In the years after the unveiling of Sticha's artwork here in Glendale, Forest Lawn commissioned a companion painting. American artist Robert Clark was hired to paint the Resurrection.
Whereas the crucifixion traveled throughout Europe and the United States, Robert Clark's painting has never left this building. The blank canvas is on display in 1961 in front of the crucifixion. And here, Clark is at work in a studio attached to the theater that was built specifically for his new artwork. As you will see in a moment when we reveal the resurrection, the setting depicted in both paintings is the same. Each occurs on the outskirts of ancient Jerusalem, but the time has changed. It is no longer Good Friday, but Easter Sunday morning. The sky has turned from dark and stormy to a sunny pastel. Clark's work is not only tied to Sticha's painting, it also relates to Forest Lawn's original use for this hilltop location. From 1924 through 1948, Forest Lawn held enormous Easter sunrise services on this site, where tens of thousands of people would gather annually. The service varied from one year to the next. On some occasions, it included a band shell with musical performances by the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra and a community choir with hundreds of singers arranged in the form of a cross. Other years, there was an Easter pageant with a recreation of Christ's rock cartoon and actors portraying the New Testament scene. By adding Clark's painting of the risen Christ, the Hall of Crucifixion Resurrection creates a permanent way of commemorating and reenacting the story of Easter. And now behold, Robert Clark's painting, The Resurrection. Christ has emerged from his tomb and gestures toward the countless people in the heavens. Beyond them are several churches. On the left is Hagia Sophia, the 6th century church in Istanbul. Moving toward the right, we see Mont Saint-Michel, a medieval church located atop a fairy tale-like perch in Normandy, France. Next is the Cathedral of Florence in Italy, a marvel of engineering and a masterpiece of Renaissance architecture. Nearby is St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, an important symbol of the papacy and the largest church in the world. On the far right is St. Paul's Cathedral in London. And below is the Old North Church in Boston. This church provides a connection not just to America, but to Forest Lawn. In the same year the painting was completed, Forest Lawn finished construction on a full-scale replica of the Old North Church at Hollywood Hills, which is shown here during its dedication ceremony. As a final touch, the artist included orange California poppies in the foreground. This subtle homage is a way of connecting a biblical scene to the present while linking ancient Jerusalem to Southern California. The flowers bloom every year around Easter, including just outside the Hall of Crucifixion Resurrection.
Thank you for joining us. You can remain in the theater and further explore Jan Stika's painting of the Crucifixion, which will be displayed again in a moment. If you have questions, the museum staff next door will be happy to help. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Forest Lawn 会出现的，因为呢，我们在Yahoo Travel 呢，它是 voted top 10，OK， 就是免费的博物馆的其中的首10位啊，所以今天大家可以就是欣赏一下。那我们待会呢是会去博物馆，不过首先我们的博物馆长呢会给大家一个 presentation， 然后我们去博物馆的时候呢会分开2批。因为太多人，我们会一部分的人在前面前一半的博物馆，然后另外一半呢会在后一半的博物馆，那我会负责翻译，所以要是翻译的不好，请大家原谅。我12岁来美国，所以我英文比中文好一点点。OK， 那现在我们就让 James 来做这个 presentation， 我也尽量去翻译一下。好 ，OK， go ahead, please, James. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad you enjoyed the show. It was a lot of fun to put together. Now I'm just going to tell you a little about the art and history of Forest Lawn as our resurrection painting slides behind me and back into its hiding place. So a little about myself.
Oh, okay, sure, I can do a quick. Short, I'll do it very briefly. OK， 那我们的博物馆长呢，现在他就是谢谢大家来，然后他说他会简单的介绍一下关于我们公司的一些艺术，为什么有艺术，一些历史，让大家多了解我们的历史跟我们的艺术。然后呢，他也会说一下他自己的那个背景。
And a little about myself. So I'm an art historian.